welcome. The 330 Club podcast is back. I got my boy. You may know him as Uncle Ben, among other producer names, but Ben Fabrici. Thank you for being here, my brother. How you doing?
Good. I appreciate you having me here. Thank you
Yeah,
for inviting me.
yeah. I wanted to have you on. You're actually a member of the 330 Club.
I am, in fact.
You attend meetings. Um, so I had to have you on, and we talked about this. I actually asked you to be on before I started the podcast, so it took us a little bit, but we got it. We're rolling. Um, we have a lot to talk about, and you may not think that, but we do.
There's a lot to unpack. I don't know what there is all to unpack. I have some ideas, but I'm ready. I'm
All right,
ready
well,
for it all.
I shouldn't advertise because I'm not sponsored. There's no ads on this podcast as of right now, but I'm about to crack a little PBR here. And cheers to you.
I will cheers you with my Miller Lite.
A virtual cheers.
Cheers, brother.
So, for anybody listening who maybe isn't familiar with you or our relationship as like how we became friends, they may know that your brother and I have been friends for a very long time.
Yes.
I think 2006. So that's almost 20 years.
Sounds about right. Yeah, it's been like close to 20 years at this point. Yeah.
So in that realm, I've known you most of that. At least kind of known you.
Yeah.
And then you and my brother are the same age.
Yep.
So we'll get into that when we talk a little bit about Yung Gnarly Sheen and Uncle Ben and all of your guys' stuff. But yeah, like we've known each other for quite a while now.
Yeah, it's kind of wild when I think about it. I haven't really stopped to think about it until now, just how long the Fabrici and Savage families have been intertwined.
And
It-
a lot making a
been
lot of
hell a
music.
run. Yes. Oh my God, yes.
Because
Especially you and Danny back in the day. I mean, you guys were just pumping content out.
yeah, me and Danny, and hopefully he'll be on one day so we can go more into detail. I'm not gonna bore people with this when he's not on, but I mean, we did our first band ever, which had a bunch of names. Mostly people know it as Your Mom, which did demos, which I have. Cosmonaut, which had tons of stuff. Set Sail, which we did the EP and some other stuff. Fast Food Kids. We did some other stuff under other names that I have that's probably not released to the public. We played a lot of shows together. So, your brother and I have a very good working relationship when it comes to like writing and recording music and playing live. But I think that the same could be said for you and Steve. So I guess let's talk a little bit about your like musical background, if that's cool. We could dive into that.
Yeah.
Because, that's how I got to know you was through your brother and then you and Steve becoming homies. And then you guys were more friends before you worked on music.
Oh yeah, we were chilling for years before we ever did anything together, I think. I mean, it had been a few years before Gnarly Sheen came to existence, I suppose.
When you started hanging out with Steve, and I know we don't know an exact year or date, but you were mostly playing bass, not really recording and producing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I started out just playing bass. I think I picked it up when I was 9. So I was like 9, I picked up bass.
It's like
my brother
almost
Danny,
20 years.
Yeah, almost 20 years at this point. And my brother Danny, who's older than me, he's Mill's age, is a drummer. So the funniest story I like to tell is that I always wanted to play drums, but as a 9-year-old kid with an older brother, you can't copy your older brother. So you got to find your own thing. And so he took drums before I ever picked up an instrument. And so I picked up bass and then got really into slap bass because that was the closest I could come to drums that wasn't
Percussive.
drums. Yeah. I've always been very much into the rhythm and the percussion. That's definitely the elements of music that I've gravitated towards over the years.
Well, you're a Flea guy.
Yes, it was Flea and Geddy Lee from Rush. So Red Hot Chili Peppers and Rush were like the two bands that got me started with music, essentially.
Geddy Lee is one of the he's the man.
God,
he sings
he's a
too.
Monster. He sings, and he, like, for people who are familiar with bass technique, There's the finger style. You typically do two fingers and you walk it with your two fingers. And Getty almost exclusively does one finger, and he
Yeah.
rakes up and down with the finger, and it's a very unique technique. It's crazy the speed and the precision he gets compared to other players. Yeah, he's a monster.
Side note, just because I'm a music nerd and a gear nerd, are those two guys a big reason why you got a P bass back in the day?
I would like to say it was, but I didn't think that much into things. I didn't look too much into that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the type of gear, the musicians I was looking up to. I didn't really
Or
look
does
into
Getty play
that.
a jazz? Am I wrong?
He plays a jazz.
That makes more sense for his style.
Yeah. And Flea's swapped around. I think he's
Yeah,
played a
well,
P
he's had like
bass.
custom
He's had
stuff.
jazz. He's played Stingrays, which I
Mm-hmm.
now have a Stingray. But honestly, mostly it was just going to Guitar Center that day and trying out all the basses and being like, wow, this one sounds sick.
Well, those have a really nice um character in the pickups where they're great live, but they're also really nice in a mix. Um, and the neck, I think I prefer the P bass neck to the jazz.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played a jazz in like years at this point, so
Yeah, I
it's
gotcha.
hard to compare them, but I do remember I got the Stingray at some point years after the P bass, and I never touched the P bass after that for 5, 6 years. And then I picked up the P bass one day just randomly. I was in college, and my Stingray was the only bass I had in college. And then I came to visit back home, and the P bass was at home, and I wanted to play it. Plugged it into my Ampeg, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Holy shit, this thing sounds amazing!"
They're
And
great.
totally different than my Stingray. Like that was the first time. I mean, I don't know if I'm in the majority or minority as a bass player, but contrasting to guitar players, I never really thought about my tone a whole lot
Hmm.
until that moment that it's like I picked up the P bass after so many years, and I was like, "Holy cow, this thing is a different instrument than my Stingray." It
Well,
feels like.
I think there's something that like even if you're not somebody who plays music, you can kind of understand where it's like you have your playing style that you kind of develop over time. We all have our own. But also because your instruments sound different with the electronics, so in this case the P bass pickups are a lot different than the humbucker and the Stingray. You're almost like reactive, like you're reacting to the sound you're hearing and switch, not changing your style, but playing to what you're hearing, sort of. You're tailoring it to that, and
Yeah,
it makes it fun.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I said I plugged it in the Ampeg, but even the P bass just like acoustic unplugged sounds totally different, and it completely affected what I was playing on it.
Yeah.
I mean, simplest example is like pick versus finger style.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's something about a P bass with a pick
Mm-hmm.
that it gives this very specific bass tone that I'm sure everyone has heard this bass tone and they know like a picked P bass tone,
Oh yeah.
and it's just the classic picked bass tone, and it's great.
And I've played both of those basses that you like your actual ones, not just those models. Because you've let me record on them and play them and stuff, and they're both you got really good ones. And the funny thing is the Fender is just like the made in Mexico, like whatever. It's fucking outstanding. It's so good.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
And that's how I feel about a lot of my Fenders. Like there's some USA made stuff that's great, but like I don't know, man. Some of their stuff just play. It's so easy to play.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
So
The Stingray is a little more difficult to play. That's definitely
yeah,
for
I mean
sure.
that's what I use when I record is a Stingray, and there I want to add. I do have a P bass too, but it's kind of a cheaper one. I want to add like a little bit of a better one,
Yeah,
but the P bass just it's almost like because the bass has so much low end, you don't need a humbucker in every scenario. Sometimes
no,
it's
you
very
really don't.
helpful,
Yeah,
but it's situational.
But like, yeah, the P bass gets this sort of this low mid bite, and that really kind of cuts through a mix
Hmm.
a
Oh
lot more
yeah.
effectively than a lot of basses do with little to no processing. Just it's
I mean,
God, it's a godsend for mixing. I'll say that
yeah.
much. The Stingray is a nightmare for me to mix in comparison. I have a lot of trouble getting that to sit comfortably in certain mixes.
Yeah, I think like I use the Stingray, I've used mine, and then I've used like a really high end one on our the last Stowaway full length. And for like low tuning and it's mostly following the rhythm guitar and it's like just single notes, it does kind of what you want it to at the humbucker. But some of my more like rock and pop punk and whatever stuff where it's like standard tuning and the bass, there's some runs and stuff. That P bass pickup really gives it that lift in the mix where you can hear it. It's still bass,
Yeah.
but it's like it's not just low end. It's more musical sometimes, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. I still it's a little off topic, but still on the P bass. I still think to this day sometimes about how I had actually talked to you before before I ever got my Stingray. And I was thinking about like upgrading my P bass at the time instead of getting a new bass. And we had this whole conversation on replacing the pickups and oh, if you want a new paint job, like just to have it however you want. And you're like, get these what were they?
Quarter pounders?
Duncan Keith, right?
No,
Quarter
Seymour
pound
Duncan.
Seymour Duncan. See,
Duncan
I don't
Keith was the Blackhawks player.
is that the Blackhawks?
Yeah, the defenseman. Seymour
Oh, that's
Duncan.
great.
Um,
Seymour Duncan, yeah, yeah. You were like, yo, slap those in the P bass, just get a
mhm.
paint job. That thing's gonna be brand new.
I mean, it's still great stock, but like, you know me. So this is me as a probably like 16 or 17-year-old that you're referring to our conversation.
Yeah,
I
sounds
va-
about right.
I vaguely remember this, but I Frankenstein the shit out of all my guitars.
Yeah, you were big into that at
I
the time.
still change
I
pickups a
figured,
lot.
yeah, you kind of still are. You like the
Um,
customization.
it's really I don't even mess with the aesthetics a lot. I just buy stuff that I like already, but it's a lot more electronics and like hardware because now like this month is 20 years I got my first guitar, so I kind of like I try to get better still. I have my bag of tricks, but I know who I am.
Yeah,
So it's like, stable hardware, good electronics, things like that. I know we were talking about bass guitars and playing bass and all that, but what I wanted to kind of ask after that is like, how did you get more into like the recording and production side? It makes a lot of sense because you're into like bass and drums and like percussion, but like, how did you get into like the kind of pro audio, if you will, kind of side of
yeah.
things?
All right. Let's take a trip back in my mind
Lots to
together
unpack
with
here.
me. Yeah, let's try and remember. Yeah, let's take a drink while we reminisce.
It's the best way to do it.
Let's see. I
Not
think
that
I
we're
got
promoting drinking or anything.
no,
We'd never
absolutely
do
not.
that.
Let's see. I think it was it was the result of a couple things. Um, for a long time, I was playing bass and taking lessons and learning to get better at bass. But I didn't necessarily have any, I guess, I didn't have many people around me who wanted to create the same type of music and content that I wanted to create. Um, and so, I mean, I guess for example, it was like a lot of people wanted to make very heavy music, hardcore, metalcore type stuff. It was very prevalent in our area at that time. And I loved that music. I loved listening to that music, but also I was a 14-year-old who was playing bass guitar, and I had to show off my chops in a sense, and I didn't think those genres were great for showing off my
No,
chops.
and not to cut you off, but to be fair, those are almost like playing rhythm guitar.
Yeah,
And it's
100%.
not cutting people down because I Stolaways like that, and I write the bass parts, but they just follow like it's meant to be the low end of the rhythm guitar.
Yeah, it's meant to just, and like we can get into this. We can get into this later, so I don't get on a tangent and forget the initial point. But as I've grown and gotten older and matured, I very much love and appreciate bass as just the brick foundation of a
Sure,
song, if that makes sense.
it's
I've come
bass.
to
Bass has a lot of
appreciate that
purposes.
so much. But back then, I was essentially, I wanted to be the star of the show.
Well, this is a
But
15-year journey too.
yeah, so yeah, I was 14. I wanted to be star of the show, but I chose the least star of the show instrument, if you will. I chose bass, and uh, along with that, I started getting into some other music. I started trying to be more open-minded to music in general because I was very much that douchey kid that thinks he's better than you because my music taste is superior to yours when I was a teenager. It's like,
Yeah.
you listen to rap music? Have you ever heard of A Day to Remember? So yeah, that was very much me in middle school. And as I got into high school, I started trying to broaden my horizons and not be so judgmental. And I got into rap and hip hop music. Specifically, I got into it was weirdly enough, it was Kid Cudi that transitioned me into.
Oh, he has some cool stuff from that era, though.
When Man on the Moon 1 came out, I had a good chunk of friends who were very into that album, and they just constantly played it around me. And at first, I was like, nah, this ain't Pantera, this ain't whatever. And eventually, yeah, exactly. But over time, I was like,
Pantera
God.
rules.
But yeah, over time, I was like, God damn, this is a hell of an album.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it was Cudi, and then that just got me down the rabbit hole of hip hop music. It's like I first discovered hip hop when I was like 15, and it's like I had this massive catalog of shit to dive into, and it was amazing. And that slowly led me to wanting to purchase my first DAW and making beats.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the, I guess, long and short
You were
of
still
it.
in high school when you started doing that.
Yeah, I think I got my first DAW when I was like a freshman in high school. So however you old are, like 14 around then.
Yeah, because the only reason I have a frame of reference for that is because, and we'll get into this later, but the very first Gnarly Sheen song that you and Steve did was like 2013.
So I'm at a frat. I remember.
Yeah, so you guys were either like juniors or seniors. It was in that range.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had been messing around with DAWs for at least like a couple of years at that point.
By that point, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep going on this point, but something I want to toss out there too. It's funny, like you and Steve are in a similar boat because I know you have older siblings besides Danny, but like we're the same difference in age, and it's really funny. It's to a T because Danny and I are a month apart, and you and Steve are around a month apart.
Yeah.
And then the same.
Damn, I never made that connection with the birthdays. Just how close the ages are and how connected that is.
So there's this thing that I saw happen with Steve that may have happened with you, where it's like you're young, you're impressionable, and you guys, it wasn't even 14. You guys were like 11 or 12 listening to our shit.
Yeah.
So because me and Danny were playing in bands by the time we were 13 or 14. Together. So like you're getting, and even before Cosmonaut and your Jadis Phelan and all that shit was going on. So like you're getting this dump of like Chili Peppers, Pantera, Metallica, whatever, and then you're getting A Day to Remember, The Devil Wears Prada, whatever, whatever the fuck was happening.
We can name
back then.
1,000 of them.
Yeah, and it's funny because Danny and I both are big hip hop people too, but your taste kind of broadens over time, And as much as I love playing guitar, sometimes I love music that has no guitar in it or samples or whatever. So I think that this is kind of that thing where it's like your peers don't know this music because they don't have somebody to introduce them to it because it's not mainstream. This is an era where monoculture was still a thing. If a song was popular, people all knew it because
Yeah.
of TV and radio. This is still that era. So you kind of hold on to this, oh yeah, like I got, For Those Who Have Heart, like that's my album. But then you start hearing this Kid Cudi thing and it's like, oh, well, this is cool too. My brother maybe didn't introduce me to it, although I'm sure Danny likes some of that stuff too, because me and him have jammed Kid Cudi in that era.
He was a big fan of Cudi. I don't know if he was the one
But
who introduced me, but
but
besides
what
the
I'm
point.
saying is like when you're around your other homies, like that stuff has happened to me, where it's like, oh well, I can like both. This is great. Like as a musician and someone who
Yeah.
loves me, it's like you're a fan and you're a musician, and there's no better feeling than being like for me, I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm like, all right, well I got like this Webbed Wing album that's like rock, it's like pure Dinosaur Jr. grungy and punk inspired rock, and then a bunch of Mac Miller mixtapes, and I'm like, I can have both.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Yeah. Why can't you have both? Like why? I don't know. I've been on a journey for a
It's
long
never
time.
ending, my friend.
Yeah, I've been on a journey since probably the end of high school where I've had this mantra in my head where I need to find I need to find the positives and the enjoyable parts of every genre of music.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's been a bit of a double-edged sword, but for the most part it's broadened my horizons immensely.
I have a question, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off at all, but I have so many questions because of the conversation and knowing, like, I know you and your family, but like, there's other stuff I've never asked you. So your dad is a great musician. He's a great pianist, keyboard player, but he also has an ear. He likes good music. I've
Yeah.
talked several times. I mean, how many times have your dad and I gone back and forth about the Led Zeppelin debate, about which album's the best? Or like, I
The
would
classic.
or I'd sift through his CDs and I'm like sitting there going like, yo, Adam, you have Fastball, like for that, whatever punk, whatever alternative bands that I was into at the time. Um, so you were clearly exposed to classic rock at a very young age. You went to see Rush. We've talked about that. And we've
Yeah.
both seen Rush at different times. Sky Point Neil Peart, one of the greatest bands ever.
Again, rest in peace, dude.
Yeah. But your dad loves all kind of great stuff, and I would imagine that he introduced you to a lot of it at a young age, whether you cared for it or not. Do you find yourself going now? Maybe it's not all stuff he liked, but I find myself finding stuff from the 70s and 80s now and really getting into it.
Oh yeah.
Like I would have never, like back in the day, I was like, yeah, like classic rock's cool. But now I'm like I love like Huey Lewis and the News and shit like that.
Dude, I have not given Huey the proper deep dive yet, and that is someone who's on my list that it's
Dude,
I need
I
to
love
give this guy the
saxophone.
dive. Dude, me too.
Saxophone.
It's one of the most beautiful instruments.
So I guess that's my question is like, even though you may have been introduced, like, because obviously like pop punk and hardcore and metalcore and rap are like new at a young age, you were probably introduced to a lot of this kind of stuff because of your dad's taste.
Mhm.
Like I was, like my dad introduced me to Van Halen and Black Sabbath and
Yeah.
a lot of like 70s disco stuff and whatever. But then you get to be older and you're like, I'm listening to Kool and the Gang now at 32 going like, holy shit, this is great.
Dude, there's just a plethora of old, whatever you want to quantify as old, but stuff from I guess our parents' era that
Yeah.
my dad, it's like he'll hear me listening to it and he'll be like, "You like Sly and the Family Stone?"
Yeah. Or like Steely
never-
Dan.
Yeah. Well, I guess my point was there's a lot that my dad doesn't really like, or he's never been his jam. Not that he doesn't
but
like
he
it, but it's
knows
just,
what it is though.
yeah, and he's like, "Oh, you're listening to this guy now." Yeah. And I only refuted that because my dad is a huge Steely Dan fan.
No. I know. I misunderstood your original point, but I do understand what you're saying because I've had that same experience with my parents where like they'll know what I'm listening to, And it's not that they hate it, but they don't listen in there going like, "You like this? Like,
Yeah,
you shouldn't
exactly.
even you shouldn't even know what this is." I
Yeah, my
understand.
dad's never been he was never into funk, soul, or jazz a whole lot. It was pretty much it's pretty straightforward rock and roll.
Prague,
Rock and
Prague,
roll with the prog touch.
Prague.
That
Yeah,
was my dad. Like he loved
yeah.
your classic like bluesy rock like Zeppelin, and then it evolved into prog stuff like
Well, yeah, because your dad loved Houses of the Holy.
yeah, that's his favorite album. He
I know.
still holds it.
And you know
He
what the
still
funny
holds
thing
that
is?
it's the best album.
So I've been coming to your parents' house for like 20 years almost. And I think for like all of that time, I'm like, no, Led Zeppelin 4. But like now I'm like, maybe physical graffiti. Like I'm starting to even like get into my
I
own
don't think
head
it's
about it.
four. I think it's probably one or two.
Two is like really good. Three's kind of slept on though.
Three is slept on. Three is
But
slept
maybe
on
not better than
hard.
one and two, but I don't think it gets its props. That's a whole nother fucking
That's fair.
episode.
That's fair.
Like you and I
Yeah,
could talk about Led
I
Zeppelin
could
for
have
10
an
hours.
entire episode on Zeph.
In Through the Outdoor is like awesome. Like the thing about Zeppelin though, I can see why your dad loves them. They do enough to rock. Like you said, they have that blue. They're really a blues band at their core. They kind of invented this style, really, where it's like blues rock.
Yeah.
Or it's not. That's a bad way to put it. It's rock and roll. They're playing off inspired like blues pentatonic, like major pentatonic scale, but they're not doing like shit that John Mayer would do or like Buddy Guy would do. Or it's like they're playing rock music, hence the
Yeah.
heavy metal moniker that they were given, even though they don't sound like Sabbath or whatever.
No. Nowhere
Um,
close.
but you know, they all get grouped in together. I guess my point is though, your dad playing keyboards and piano, he likes the musical, like even the stuff where they don't have a lot of keyboards, it's very musical what he likes.
Yes. Yes. It's got to be musical. It's got to have, yeah. Yeah. It cannot just be block chords and, four
Like
chord.
my dad was a singer, so like he didn't play instruments, but he was
I
a
didn't-
singer, so like you
I
probably
didn't know
that.
Yeah, I didn't know Jovan was a singer. That's really
so
cool.
so he was always on my ass about pitch and all this stuff, and my dad was more of a bass, so like I can sing low, but like my voice, so you've heard me on recordings, it goes up. But like he loved Van Halen, and of course he loved the guitar solos, but like he loved like David Lee Roth. That was like the thing, is like he'd have a tape, like like an actual mixtape on a cassette, like a real mixtape in his car back in the 90s. And Ice Cream Man would come on, but he'd want to hear David Lee Roth like belting it. And then it would be like Three Dog Night or something. And they're like, hitting these crazy like harmonies and big choruses. But
That's that's a mixtape, dude.
dude, my dad introduced me to some great music, and like I'm so happy because now that I look into more of these artists, I'm like, oh my God, this is the shit. You know what I mean? My dad loved Huey Lewis in the News, but Huey Lewis, amazing vocalist.
Yeah,
And I think
phenomenal.
it's interesting though, and this is why I go on this way. Like I sing, but I'm a guitar player. You're a bass player, you're a producer, and you make beats and stuff, but you're a bass player. So it's like your dad is learning this other instrument and taking this from this music, and then you're hearing the same music, but you're taking something probably completely different from it.
Oh yeah, entirely. I mean, how do I even? There's a lot of things that pop into my head when I think about how me and my dad translate music differently.
And so does your brother.
Yeah, it's completely different. I mean, for one, I guess this is something rather similar between me and my brother, and kind of we share with my dad, but he's a little different. I don't really listen to lyrics. Lyrics, I mean, a voice singing is just another instrument playing a melody with a specific rhythm. It's a top line. It's a top line over a song, the same way that a saxophone solos over a song, the same way that a lead guitar goes over a song. And that's something that I've never really, I guess, me and my brother have talked about it a lot, but I haven't really had the conversation with my dad. But I think he probably treats music a similar way in that sense.
Yeah, I am with you. I actually think my dad's kind of like that too. Like he knows all the lyrics, but like he wasn't a lyricist. Like my brother is a lyricist.
Yeah, yeah. Steve's a
Um,
lyricist through and through.
Now for me, I have an opinion where I think that lyrics can enhance a great song, but you could have great lyrics, but if the music sucks, you don't got shit.
You don't got a thing.
Because I say this to people all the time. There's always people who are like, I hate country or I hate screamo music, whatever they call them, heavy metal. I hate rap or what, I don't hate any of that stuff. But my point is, if you don't like how the music sounds, which those are all genres of music, you're not going to care about the lyrics
Yeah.
because you're not going to want to listen to it. So that it kind of negates the whole thing. So for me, like when I write a song, so I'll just use my solo music as an example because that's what I've been releasing lately is just solo music under my own name. I love writing music. I like writing vocal melodies. I think that's my new challenge because I can write guitar parts pretty, I mean, not, I want to say easily, but like, it's not like a challenge for me to
But
come
it's
up with
like,
some
yeah, you've been writing guitar parts for over a decade, easily.
2 decades.
2 decades.
So,
Yeah, 2
so,
decades at this point. Yeah.
so for me, it's like,
like
what do I
breathing.
want to, yeah, but the vocal melody is so important and it's hard. And then the harmonies. And then I kind of have nonsense lyrics and then I go back and write real lyrics because at the same time, you don't want to sing something that's like, when it's too earnest, it's like cheesy and lame and you're almost embarrassed to, like, singing in itself is very like uncomfortable.
It's a very vulnerable
Yeah, exactly.
instrument, I guess you could say.
So then I have to say, well, what am I writing about? And I try to be clever and come up with stuff that's catchy, but also like it reflects my personality because I'm not going to just come out and say this or that, but maybe I'll phrase it this way, and then it has to rhyme without going too much into that rabbit hole. As much as I think that is important, I'm with you. Like lyrics are kind of the last thing. They're last for me. They're the icing on the cake. You can make a cake that tastes delicious without writing happy birthday whoever on the top of it.
Yeah.
That just addresses who it's about. And the thing is, if you look at all these countries where big artists go that they don't speak that language, but they know every lyric, it shows you like it's not it's about the emotion that the song evokes, whether it be with instruments or vocal melody or how the lyrics sound or the cadence or the rhythm. It's all about evoking emotion with those instruments, including the voice. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, the lyrical content, the actual words, and absorbing the message of the words is kind of like you were saying. In my opinion, it's the cherry on top.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it could be great.
It could be great. It can add a lot, sure. But like everything under that cherry, it's the rhythm, the harmony, and the melody, the big three factors of music. It's having the solid base of rhythm, harmony, and melody that catches and captures your listeners' ears.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'll say this. Great lyrics can make a great song even better. I'm not saying they don't matter. It's just that, like you said, like you have to have the foundation, and the foundation will make a song or a whole artist's catalog sometimes good enough for you to like it.
Yeah. And kind of like you were saying, like people going to other countries where it's like, I don't even know the words they're saying, but it's like the foundation they've laid evokes that emotion out of me that it's almost like I know what message they're trying to portray, even though I can't even understand the language that they're speaking. And it's honestly a beautiful thing.
Well, I have a little bit of a weird experience with this because being Serbian, my mom loves Serbian music. My grandpa was a Serbian musician. He put out a lot of albums and original music. He played accordion and sang. And so, but she likes Serbian pop music. And my dad likes some Serbian stuff, but it's more like old school, like drinking folk music. So I grew up around that.
Does your mom like what we would consider modern pop music or pop music from her?
She likes modern. No, she keeps up. So like my whole life, she kept up with what was going on over there. And there'd be like import stores, and she'd get like tapes and then CDs, and now
Oh,
she
that's
gets it on
sick.
Spotify. And she
Yeah, that's
follows
sick.
Instagram accounts. So like my mom likes American like whatever here too. Like she likes, certain pop artists and country and whatever. But like she likes like introduces me to cool music where I'm like, oh, like maybe like, I speak a little Serbian, but like I grew up here, so did my parents. So my parents both speak fluent Serbian because of my grandparents. I don't understand every lyric, but sometimes like that's a pretty good song. And I'm sitting there like looking up like Google Translate in Serbian, the language doesn't translate like word for word. It's almost like kind of backwards in a way.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
So
I know what you mean.
so like my brain can compute it, but like I can't sing it back. It doesn't make sense. So like I had that experience, and then I also thought about this. This is a long time ago, but most people will probably I know you'll get this reference because you're not like too young. But the fucking biggest YouTube video ever was the Gangnam Style song.
Oh my God, yeah, that was huge when it
It's
came out.
billions of views, billions, and
Billion.
there's like there's a little English in it, a little.
Yeah.
And I remember like one of my homies showing it to me, being like, "Yo, like check this out, it's funny or whatever." I'm like, "Oh, cool. That guy sounds good. Good beat. The guy can dance." But like, it was everywhere, and I'm like, this blows up, and it's obviously all over the world. But like in America, like most people in America, if they don't speak English, they might speak Spanish or a few other languages. They're not speaking, Korean.
Yeah,
Like,
no, Korean is not
like
one of the prevalent top whatever here.
so like a light went off in my head, and I think I was around like 18, 19 when that song came out. I was still pretty young, but like I was like, wow, like you kind of, it's not that lyrics don't matter, but it's almost like you don't have to have great lyrics to have a song that people like.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
no,
weird.
I never really thought about that. Yeah, Gangnam Style. That he really, I mean, I guess K-pop was a huge thing prior to
And it is now
I think the
too.
artist name, I think his name is Psy. Um
Yeah, Psy.
I mean,
It's like
obviously,
TSY or something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He obviously K-pop and a lot of those genres coming out of the Asian countries like Korea and Japan were big in the West prior to that. But man, I can't really think in my time. It really feels like that song was like one of the first things that transcended country borders, and it just
Yeah.
like was global.
Yeah, and that's why I just use that as as an example. It's like, what do we understand from those lyrics? Hey, sexy lady, and Gangnam style, which, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
It's fucking Gundam style. That's what I
Gundam
thought
style,
that's what
baby.
I thought it was when it came out. I was like, Gundam?
Don't get me started. Don't
I
get me
know.
started.
I know. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, who the hell knows what this guy's saying? Yet give it a good beat and the guy can dance to it, and there's a good production value for the video, and everybody loves it.
And yeah, everyone across the freaking globe.
I mean,
Like,
if
yeah.
TikTok was around back then,
Oh my
or
God.
like even just Instagram and YouTube having like reels, shorts, whatever,
Yeah.
this shit would be even crazier
Yeah, no, it'd be nuts.
because it's just to be the dude dancing. So like, I don't know. I guess
Uh,
that's my
oh
kind of
my God. I can only, dude, the TikTok dances that would have spawned if that had been created at the same
people
time.
people would have been taken out over it. That's all I can say.
TikTok would have been a hell of a place.
Yeah. I guess like, so we were talking about you getting more into production, not to get too far off the path.
Yeah.
And obviously you were kind of doing it at home before you went to school and like studied that kind of stuff and got more into it. And not to gloss over that, but like something else I wanted to just talk about was you got into doing like live sound, which is its own world.
Oh yeah.
So like was that something you planned on?
No, not at all. Uh, I got out of college. I guess I don't know how much to talk about.
You can talk about as much as you want.
College.
I didn't mean to gloss over it. This is just
No,
kind of
no, yeah, no,
a
we're
thought that
fine.
I had.
I just don't want to get too caught up in college life and lose track of the original train of thought. But essentially, I went to college. I went to school for recording arts. It was originally the program was called Recording Arts, and then it was changed to audio engineering and sound production, because that sounds a lot better on a resume than recording arts.
It's like soup of the day or soup du jour.
Yeah. No, that was actually like, I think it got changed after my freshman year, and there was an actual, like, all the students in the program got to vote for, like, which of these 4 or 5 names should we change the program to.
And I'm sure
And
you cared a whole fucking lot.
I mean, I cared more than I'd like to admit,
Well,
but
you were what, 18, 19?
yeah, I was 18, 19, and the idea of having a degree that had the word engineering in it, I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty
I can see
cool.
that.
I'm in a music school and I'll have an engineering degree. um, I thought that sounded a lot better than recording arts. That was the only reason I cared about it.
No,
Um,
I get that.
but no, I never planned on live sound. I always thought it was going to be studio work. Live sound seemed, there was a lot of live sound, I guess what you would call prerequisites and requirements in college. So I had a lot of
Yeah.
experience going through the program. And then once I got out of college, um, I wasn't fully graduated yet. The last credits I needed was an internship. Um,
Mm.
and so we had a group chat, essentially. Do people still use GroupMe? I think that was
I
the name of
don't.
the app. It was an app that a lot of people used
It's
at
like
my
Slack or
college.
something.
Yeah, it's essentially like Slack. It's just a big group chat with everyone in my college program from every grade, freshman through senior, and alumni. And so there's this girl, Rachel, who had graduated a year prior to me, and she put in the group chat one day that she was leaving her job as a live sound engineer, and that they needed someone to fill the spot, and she would love to, anyone who was around the Chicago area, because that's where the job was, she would love to recommend someone from our program, because she really liked the job, she liked her boss. And so, I saw that, and this was right after I had finished my last courses in college, and I needed that internship, and I was like, there's my internship. Boom. It just fell into my lap. And I messaged her and I was like, hey,
As things do.
yeah. And I was like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. I'm in the Chicagoland area. And I want to do this. And so that's how I got the job, working live sound. And
You rolled with that for a while.
and I was there. I originally planned to be there. I think the internship was supposed to be 6 weeks, I think was the original internship. It was 6 weeks. And then I stayed there for somewhere between 2 and 3 years.
It's like I was gonna say around 3 years ish.
Yeah,
right?
I think it was just shy of 3 years when I ended up leaving. And that was, for better or for worse, one of probably the most eye-opening and best experiences I've had in audio.
I mean, sometimes you have to go through things that, like, you're like, hey, I know I don't want this, but like I'm glad that I learned this stuff one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I brought that up because, like, it's weird. I now have been in so many recording scenarios, but I've also played a ton of live shows in different settings, indoors, outdoors, different types of bands, whatever. And like live sound is so different.
It's its own animal. Yeah.
And it's even weirder when, like, I'm sure for you, like, if you learn a certain room, you still have the variable of the artist, but
Yeah.
like for me, I don't really have as much variable as the artist. I have the variable of the fucking room that I'm playing in. So I'd go to like a weird shaped room and my amp is coming off the wall and like it sounds goofy and like the mid range is messed, like stuff like that. And to a lot of people, it's like, oh, sound is sound. But to me, I'm like, look, listen to anything you want out of your phone, then put good headphones or cheap headphones, play it through your car, play it through your computer. None of it sounds the same.
No, yeah, it's
What
completely
you're,
different every time.
headphones, whatever. And I think that people don't realize it's similar in a live setting, but also you're trying to fit every frequency into the same PA.
Yeah.
And then you're filling that room and how that room reflects it back at everybody. I'm not an expert, but I'm just from my own experience. I'm like, wow. Like I remember when you took that job and I know the venue and stuff. And I'm like, wow, like I'm not like surprised. I know you could do it, but I was impressed because I'm like, man, like this dude's out here playing music. He's recording and producing music. And now he's doing live sound. That's a lot.
Honestly, I would stick with live sound if it wasn't for some other.
Had to be the right situation.
It would have to be the right situation, and there's been some other things as like, I mean, I guess the easiest thing to explain quickly is my tinnitus has skyrocketed in those
Gotcha.
3 years I was doing live sound, and there's a lot of people who mix with, there's earplugs, they cost a lot of money. You can get molded earplugs that give you a flat EQ frequency drop. So you can technically try and mix with earplugs in, but it doesn't affect, like normally when you put like mesh earplugs in, it would affect the frequency response you're hearing. So you would lose a lot of highs and mids, and you would get a lot of bass. So you can pay a lot of money, get your ears molded, get special earplugs, and I can safely mix the music, and it's not affecting how I'm hearing the music, if that makes sense.
Well, I understand that because I've tested out lots of, not molded for my ears yet. I may have to, but for playing, but I've tested out going to shows and playing shows on both ends and wearing different types of ear protection. So I have like a lot of them, again, they take the mid-range out. It's a lot of bass. But I got some that were really designed where they kind of were circular and they kind of like, I don't know how, but they let more mid-range in.
I mean, if you get specially molded earplugs, they're great. They're absolutely great. I highly recommend them if you have the money for them, because they can be very expensive. They can be a couple $100.
But mixing, you need a flat EQ to your ear.
Yeah. And so my issue with live sound, and this is a personal issue, because I know plenty of people there. I know classmates that I went to college with that are doing live sound to this day, and they use the earplugs that we in college, we went to a like ear doctor's clinic. It was part of our program to get these earplugs. So I got them in college, actually. And I know plenty of people, classmates, who are still doing live sound using those earplugs. A personal problem I had doing live sound with those earplugs was even if the EQ response was flat and I could balance the lows, the mids, and the highs, I couldn't properly balance the loudness, the volume of the entire venue. And I became very self-conscious of I don't want to blow anybody's ears out. So it can sound immaculate, but it can also be really loud and also sound immaculate at the same time. And if I was rocking earplugs, that's what would happen, is I would get a perfect balance, but I wasn't as good at balancing the total volume of the PA systems, and no one ever complained. If anything, I was working in a bar environment. If anything, people wanted me to turn the music up, the overall PA up. But I'm going to be honest, I made executive decisions. That's not good for those people's ears. You can clearly hear everything just fine. It sounds great. If you want it any louder, you're getting hearing damage for the rest of your
Yeah.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that happened to me working live sound. Is I gave myself, I mean, I had pretty crippling tinnitus prior to that job, but it was exacerbated extremely from working in a live sound environment.
I think that's a huge factor. And what's interesting to me is the future of live sound, I think, is going to be like you don't have to have such loud stage volume.
I hope so.
Well, it's crazy, like with the modelers, like you go like to front of house and in-ears and you don't need a cab on stage. So what does that leave you with drums? I mean, even in a 300 cab venue, let alone 1,000, an acoustic drum set's not going to be as loud as it is in your basement.
Yeah.
Like I saw Jimmy Eat World one time a few years ago, which they're one of the best live bands, by the way. I was like right up front, and it was outside at
I did live
Northerly.
sound for a Jimmy Eat World tribute band, if that counts.
Well, maybe.
No, but go on.
But they were playing at Northerly Island, so a big outdoor venue with Third Eye Blind, and they had Axe effects, and they had acoustic drums and no stage volume, but the mix was fucking perfect. I didn't get my head blown off by the PA. I didn't have to hear only drums because the PA was done right, and they sounded great. Now, I love hearing, or I should say, I love feeling a cabinet, That's the guitar player in me. But most, or I should say a lot of bands they're not heavy. They're not trying to push air. And you can you can automate your like whatever kind of processing you're using to be louder for the chorus or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a different ball game. I was just throwing that out there because like it's a very interesting dynamic that was not a thing long time, like not that long ago. 10, 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, yeah, my final point, I guess, doesn't have to be final, I guess. But just finishing up my last thought is if it didn't come down to the damage to my ears and how comfortable I am mixing without earplugs, I would probably still be in live sound currently.
Yeah, so you enjoyed it.
Really, yes, yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. As much as there was frustrating moments, is definitely one of those career paths that I feel like instead of being at a 0 to 10, instead of being at a constant 5 or 6, you get your 2s and you get your 8s and 9s. Like there's some lows and they suck, but god damn, do the highs hit high. And it's like, you're just like, man, I'm in the freaking zone right now.
Not now, Chief. I'm in the fucking zone.
Not now, Chief.
Oh, that's a deep cut.
It was definitely, I regret nothing. I mean, it was a great time. It was really good.
I think like that's kind of the thing though, when you're going after like a career path that you enjoy, it doesn't mean you're always going to have a great time until you kind of figure shit out, but like, or maybe you have a bad client, in this case, like a artist or whatever, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you enjoy. I'm sure you learned a lot.
Yeah. It's just mostly, it's just all about kind of thinking about, what's it going to be like 20 years down the line? It was like, I still kind of want to be able to hear and listen to music.
That's okay. That's good. That's good you had that foresight.
Yeah. It is what it is.
We can touch on any more of that, but I do want to talk a little bit before we wrap tonight up. I do want to talk a little bit about the new Gnarly Sheen release.
Yeah.
If you're into that.
Yeah.
So
what you got?
You and Steve have been working together for, like we said, about 11, 12 years. On and off, of course. There's been some periods where you weren't making stuff, but it's been fairly consistent for as far as like whenever you guys get together, you work really well together.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't speak for either of you, but I've been around for a lot of it, and I've seen it where it's like the beats, his stuff, the cadence, the flow. You guys are just able to put it together. So like, what was going on with this newest one? Like, how did that come about? Like, what's up with the beats? How was the process? Just wanted to ask some basic questions because I really enjoyed these two songs.
I had a ton of fun making them. Um, so let's see the process.
I mean, it's a little bit of a different style.
Yeah, it's definitely, especially compared to the stuff we've done together prior, very different. I mean, I guess just a little quick kind of leading up to this moment, me and Steve together in the Gnarly Sheen project. I mean, it kind of started as a bit of a joke. It started as a joke. It started as a meme, and it was very much Lil B coded.
Right, right. That was
And
kind of the vibe.
yeah, it was very much the inspiration for Steve starting things. And then he hit me up and was like, "Hey, let's make some music." And we made some dumb dumb shit in high school. And it not dumb as in bad, but just like,
It was satire.
yeah, it was satire. Like it's not like we weren't taking it seriously, but we were also it's
Like
kind
you're
of a balance between being serious and
no,
not serious.
I think what people, if you're not familiar with it, the way that I would word it, just quick aside, you guys took your work seriously and the production quality seriously, but the like lyrically and even the kind of vibe of the beats, it was supposed to be satire.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a serious production, but it was parody all along.
Yeah.
Um
But people loved it right away.
yeah, people liked it. So then uh I came back home and Steve hit me up and he said he was interested in kind of reviving Gnarly Sheen once again. Um and I think the last thing we had put out was what, 4 years prior? I
So
think
you guys did When I'm
2020.
Rich. Was that before you moved?
It was, yeah, it was before I
Like right
moved.
before?
I think it was like right before. I think it was
Because
2020.
that one it was 2020. I know that, but that had more of a trap vibe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been bouncing all around on the beats for
Well, no, but
years.
Steve was into that
And
too at the
Steve
time.
also, yeah, Steve is also like, I mean, at the time it was like before When I'm Rich, I think, I used to ask Steve to send me artists that he's listening to currently. Just give me like some inspiration on kind of the vibe, the genre, the aesthetic I'm looking for.
Mm.
And back with before When I'm Rich, it was like he was sending me Future and Playboy Cardi. And then this latest release with Pressure and Paris Green, it was like, all right, what are we looking at for our inspirations? And he started sending me Rock Marciano
Mm-hmm.
with like specifically some Alchemist collaboration albums,
He's
some
dope.
more modern Earl Sweatshirt, specifically his Alchemist collaboration album. Um, and yeah, just completely different stuff than me and Steve have ever even thought of doing together. Um, and I mean, this is also music that for a long time I've been, maybe not the rappers, but I've been a huge Alchemist fan and that type of hip hop production for a long
Oh
time.
yeah,
The very sample heavy. Um, it's fairly minimalistic.
it's real
Um,
hip hop.
it's real hip hop. It's fairly minimalistic in terms of like you got a solid sample. You're not doing too much to chop it. Like you'll chop and screw it up a little bit, but you don't we don't need to go above and beyond to just like, we have a beautiful, great foundation here with this sample chopped up a little bit, a simple drum sample to go over it, maybe a bass line, and that's about it. It's like simplicity at its finest, minimalism at its finest in terms of like sampled hip hop. And that's what I latched onto. And we started a Google Drive, and I just dropped in probably 15, 20 different little 1 minute loops on, hey, just let me know what you like and we'll run with that. This is just, a catalog of random stuff I've been messing with for the past year. And we ended up locking in on a couple songs, and yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know how much to talk about with it or what to talk about. It just all kind of, the pieces kind of fell into place.
I guess I have a little bit of a back behind the scenes kind of idea of things because of Steve's obviously my brother, but also we share a lot of art and music together. And then obviously you, me, and Steve have a regular 3:30 club meeting every now and then. So I knew the direction that he wanted to go in. And I'm glad he did, because I think it gives you guys together as a collaborative unit something different. But it's also like you're comfortable working together, so that's good.
Yeah.
But also, I think lyrically, and we were talking about lyrics, he is a lyricist. And this was really healthy because he's able to kind of put more of Steve into it, not Yung Gnarly Sheen. Because Yung Gnarly Sheen is like, there's mixtapes you guys probably can't find if you're listening to this, but Yung Gnarly Sheen was buying pussy with his tax return. Like, that's not Paris Green and Pressure. Like, this is, and again, that reference is 10 years old now, but, and that's the thing though, is you guys aren't 19, you're 29, or both about to be 29, 28. And like, you're in a space where you can be yourself as artists, and instead of like making parody because of what other people think, you could just be yourselves and not care about what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
And this is just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah. To be honest, I don't know. I guess I haven't talked about this that much with Steve, but at this point in time, like you said, it's been like 10 years. 10 years ago, I would be creating a beat for Steve with the idea in the back of my head, how are other people going to respond to this?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to think that, oh, that's funny, or, oh, that 808 hits hard, oh, that's a cool beat, that's a cool section, or, oh, that line was hard as fuck. And the difference is now, obviously I want people to listen and enjoy it, but that's not really my sole focus anymore.
Right.
It's more so just about creating something that I had fun with and I like, and something that complements his voice, and something that, we both get down to, he gets down to too. So that kind of maturation of my my priorities has definitely changed and influenced a lot on what I'm doing currently with Gnarly Sheen. Please listen. I would appreciate it if you do.
Yeah,
but if you don't,
check it out on all
that's
streaming
all right.
services. Yung Gnarly Sheen. The release is called Paris Green. It's got 2 tracks, Pressure and Paris Green. I think there'll be a lot more to come. I can't speak for you or for Steve or for Uncle Ben and Yung Gnarly Sheen, but
we got it in the
this.
vault.
I can say this. I know my brother is an artist because I work very closely with him in the band that we're in together. And I can see the growth of not just like, oh, he's getting better or more comfortable or this or that. I could see the taste of, oh, like, I like this. This is really good. This beat is really great with my voice. And he might not say it, so I can't speak for him, but I can kind of tell like the itch is there to make art, and that's important.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that's something I am currently very thankful for with
Yeah.
Steve and Gnarly Sheen in specific, because I mean, prior to Steve coming back to me and say, hey, I want to revive this, you want to be a part of it. I mean, prior to that, I had been taking a long hiatus from creating music. I was
And that
in a very
happens.
long rut. And yeah, it happens. I've been through, that was not my first musical rut. Um, but there's definitely my largest one. And I'm very thankful and very appreciative that I'm out on the other side at this point.
But I think it's important that you guys are working together because somebody who might not have been around Steve as a person that long, but just knows the kind of old Gnarly Sheen might think like, yeah, let's make this goofy and fun. And Gnarly Sheen should be fun. I mean, when I listen to it, I enjoy it. But, and again, I can't speak for you or for him, but as a fan and just somebody who's close to both of you, I can tell it's like, oh, like you guys can be comfortable together going like, hey, like let's try stuff. Let's go in this direction. If we don't like it, that's okay. It's not like you even though you and him know each other really well working together, you don't have a preconceived notion of it has to be this or it has to be that. That's important, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's also, it's partially why I have trouble, I guess, explaining our process, because we're so comfortable with each other that, like I said earlier, we had like a Google Drive and I just slap like 15, 20 different loops in there. And then Steve says, hey, I like this one. And I'm like, all right, for sure. And then a week later, he's like, all right, I started writing lyrics to this. And I'm like, okay. And then I go back into that file, that beat on Ableton. And I'm like, all right, let's expand this out. And
Yeah, right. Let's
so
cut
it's,
this for the verse,
yeah,
do
let's
this.
let's
Yeah.
expand this out so it's not just like a 8-bar loop for 1 minute.
This is how we work for Stowaway though. It's the same
Yeah.
shit.
And then I do that. He's a week later. He says, "Hey, I finished my verse," and then he comes over. We record, and I essentially just I hit play, and he just goes, and we do that like 2 or 3 times with like maybe a slightly different inflection of voice just to test some stuff out, and then we're done. Like I mean, I haven't done a ton of recording. I'm by no means, this is not my day job. I don't do it every single day, but I had a lot of hours recording different people throughout college and throughout my life. I've never I've never experienced anything like I have with Steve, where it's just like someone just walks in, I put the mic in front of them, we take 10 minutes to just go through the song like through 2 or 3 times, and then we're done tracking.
I
It's
think it's
it's
so
so
funny.
simple. It's great.
It's so funny you say that because like that's a lot how Stowaway works. Like it's me and Steve are the only two people who've been in Stowaway the entire time since 2013. We did a demo, 3 or 4 EPs, a full length, a bunch of singles, and we have a lot of new stuff that's just not out yet that we've been working on. And it's like I write music here, check this out. And sometimes it's like perfect, I got the lyrics, we're good. Sometimes it's like, hey, can you extend this verse, shorten this chorus, maybe slow this part, whatever. But it's so he can write to it. And then if he, sometimes there'll be a part where I might tell him, I don't know about this, let's try this. Or he might, that's fine. That's how you work. But like 90% of the time, it's like, cool, let's do this. Okay, great, we're ready to go. And he's all business in the studio, man. He goes in there and it's the same thing when he's screaming. So I guess that's just Steve's vibe.
Yeah, dude, it's just bang bang boom. Let's go get some food.
That's the best part.
Yeah, that's the celebratory food and beer afterwards.
So I have one more question. Well, two really. Number one, when are we going to get wings?
Oh, when are you free?
I'll text you after this. Second thing is, I know we had a lot of cool stuff we talked about today. I'm really, really grateful that you gave me your time. Is there anything else you want to talk about at all? It could be literally anything.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, I guess check out Young Gnarly Sheen on Spotify. Check out the newest release, Paris Green. It's 2 songs, Pressure and Paris Green. Yeah, check
Absolutely.
it out.
Well,
I would appreciate it.
I will link any necessary links, socials, whatever in the description. And Ben, again, I appreciate you so much for being on, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.
It's been great.
We'll do this again soon.
Yes, appreciate you.
All right.